Week 5 of the college football season was straight up absolutely electric.
Horrible.
And it lived up to every bit of the hype that all of the college football world put on it. Let me break it down for you. 6 top 25 upsets, 3 of the top 5 teams losing. We had 11 one-score games with the top 25 team involved. 4 games went into overtime and 2 overtime thrillers. That's a lot to discuss for sure. And we are ready to go here on episode 4 of Locks and Longshots. Welcome back. Let's get settled in and let's get into it. The crew is back together. Justin Chavalella, Dylan Price, Josh Bartosik, and myself, Thomas English. Boys, it was an emotional roller coaster for everybody, and especially us in the college football world. After that weekend, and especially with all that went on Saturday night in Happy Valley, how are we doing on this fine Monday evening?
Still not recovered from what happened. It was a fun game, but it was a weird game, a boring game to start, and then got really exciting, or then got even worse for us Penn State fans, then got really exciting, and then it's the same damn thing time and time again with Penn State, and it's really frustrating because we put so much hype, and it's like, this is the year Franklin can get over. So we're going to talk more about that game. I digress for now. Still trying to recover. You can hear the voices a little out. Need some sleep thrown in there as well. But, outside of that, I would say pretty good.
Dylan, how are you?
Need sleep. Need Dayquil, NyQuil, some throat lozenges or lozenges, whatever you call them or whatever. And probably like those Bray guns they had in the Men in Black or whatever movie to forget whatever the hell happened Saturday night in that game, because that was certainly not the outcome. But I looked over to our good friend Justin Chavalella and our other good friend, shout out McKenna Wall, and I said to both of them, but I think McKenna's the only one who heard me, that it just still felt like it was too good to be true when things started going their way. And the best thing that you'll always learn about James Franklin football, even though it wasn't his fault this time, is that it is always too good to be true. I'm not great, sleep deprived, exhausted, but anyways, Josh, I think it's your turn now.
Yeah, sleep would be good. A lobotomy would be better after Saturday night, I think, for a lot of people. It just was really, really depressing. And that is why I've decided just to, for once, feel what it's like to win a big game. So I decided to put the hat on. It feels good to act like that I can be a fan of a team that actually knows how to win in the clutch moments. And it's just continuously a problem again and again. And even when Penn State came back and won that game, I remember saying out loud that I hate this because they reel me back in. I know they're going to break my heart in a more depressing way than before. And I unfortunately was right. I should have bet money on it, honestly, to at least, numb the pain a little bit, but this will have to do for now. It really still pains me to wear this, but yeah.
Well, Thomas, I'll ask you how you're doing. At least Illinois won this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I was a mess Saturday night. It was a roller coaster for sure. And I got to Sunday thinking, maybe things will look up. It's, Sunday, afternoon, we got some NFL on, and then the Bears played. And I was sent through that roller coaster once again, and they ended up winning somehow. I feel like I'm still recovering from all the emotional trauma between Penn State and the Bears this weekend and how terrible of quality of football I watched this weekend.
If I was a viewer or listener, I'd just shut this podcast off at this point because we sound so
negative.
Yeah, I know. But I will say, it was a great Monday. It was a beautiful day today. I'm ready for another good week of college football. Hopefully a good week in the rest of professional sports. Hockey's getting started. The MLB postseason is right here. So
you can listen to Bomber Boys with Justin Chavalella and Dylan Price.
Yeah.
You can watch the Chicago Cubs. The Yankees lose to the Red Sox.
How about them Pirates, though? Are they playing?
Go Buccos!
The Pirates season ends in March every single year.
At least they got the manager of their future locked up now.
Yeah, right.
Paul Skeen's going to be a Yankee in a year and a half. Can we just skip to that part, please? Can we skip to that, please?
The MLB postseason should be good, but we'll give you a quick recap of this electrifying week in college football. Iowa State with a nice win over Arizona. That was a little bit of a split decision between us, but myself, Justin, and Grant were able to get that one right. And then Tennessee and Mississippi State, a game that all of us picked Tennessee, and they ended up winning. But a game that I think a lot closer than anticipated, and a game that went to overtime as well. And another one where it was a one-score win for Indiana over Iowa. We had talked about how raucous that environment is, and it lived up to the hype. Iowa was still able to escape with the win. And then Josh's Auburn team fell to Texas A&M. It's always been. Stop denying it.
No, it really hasn't been. You want to
Texas A&M gets another win. They're starting to look really legit, as is Notre Dame at this point, who beat the brakes off of Arkansas in a big way. TCU, after being ranked for the first time in quite some time, they were able to suffered a loss to Arizona State, and now the Big 12 looks real interesting. The big upset that none of us picked correctly, Illinois did beat USC, a late field goal to win it. And then Ole Miss, all of us picking it correctly. Whit Weeks, I know he's got a new relationship, but he's got to get used to the losing streak right now that LSU is on.
He's got to get used to the tempo, according to his girlfriend's dad, Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. And then I think Lane went up to Whit after the game and was asking him if the over hit or not. I'm not too sure. But I'll digress. Bama, Justin and I called it. Bama beats Georgia yet again in Athens. Kirby Smart now 1-7 against Alabama. And then the big game of the week, Oregon and Penn State. Justin, unfortunately, was correct with his Oregon pick. I think we can all agree it was a fantastic game to watch if you're a college football fan in general. If you're a Penn State fan, not so much. If you're an Oregon fan, you really enjoyed that game. But overall, a great game for sure. And then we'll talk a little bit about our locks and long shots a little bit later. But quickly, we will go around the horn. I'm going to give the guys and myself each a minute and a half. We'll see how it goes. Give me your top headline of the week. We'll try to keep it away from Bama, Georgia, and Penn State, Oregon as much as possible. But obviously, those are the two big scores of the week. So we will talk about them in a little bit more detail. Justin, we will start with you, and your minute and a half will start now.
Yeah, returning production needs to be viewed at less in college football, and I think that's what we've learned over the last couple of weeks. Clemson was a team that brought back so much production, so many different starters. Arizona State, the same type of deal, and I know they were ranked very highly, fell off. They're on their way back. Alabama, another team that brought back a lot. I know they just picked up the big win, but they lost right out of the gate to Florida State. Penn State brings back all these guys. They're going to be different. They kept so many guys from going to the NFL. They still do the same thing, in terms of the loss. And you can keep going. Florida's up there in terms of returning production, and they've gone backwards. And there has been some teams that, returning production has come to play, and it's been good. But I think we overvalue it, myself included, in the, offseason, right? Even Illinois, another team with Luke Altmaier returning. Things change from year to year that we don't take into account. Penn State stayed very similar. They added some guys, but the teams they're playing also got better. That Oregon team that came in this week had one of the best recruiting classes in the country, and you can say that every team makes changes. So it's not, returning production just doesn't carry over because everything else around teams changes. So it's got to be viewed a little bit less, in my opinion, when we talk about teams coming out of the offseason, especially considering those polls, the AP polls, the college football rankings, those things, a lot of times returning production is taking into account. And we've seen so far that a lot of the times returning production means squat.
Yeah, returning production, so important with this era of the transfer portal, but also maybe not as important as some people are saying. Dylan, we will go to you next for your minute and a half headline.
Had a great one, I think, in my car ride with Justin back from Happy Valley yesterday. Couldn't remember it now for the life of me, but I think it's some semblance of this. College isn't the NFL. As much as these days it might feel like it is, it's not. These are still 17, 18 to 22, in some cases 23-year-old kids playing college football. there are still inevitable mistakes that are going to happen. The other reason college isn't the NFL, well, there's two for part of my take here, but it's one is that we might make it like you can lose 2, 3 games, 4 games, whatever. You can make mistakes. I think it's a 1-2 loss season for a team like Penn State that gets you into the dance. And unfortunately, Penn State, because of its proximity to our hearts, is my example for us. The other thing is that the NFL, sometimes we accept being above average is good enough for some amount of time. And unfortunately, with where we are at least with the team that represents our fandom, I think the current head coach has taken the team as far as he can take them. Was what happened on Saturday night his fault? Absolutely not. But you can only be unlucky so much, and for some reason, he seems to always be unlucky. And when it comes to the quarterback, he has all the talent in the world. He is probably one of the top 5, maybe top 3 most talented quarterbacks in college football right now. But sometimes you don't have to be the most talented in college football because you're playing against 17 to 18 to 22-year-olds. These are kids learning, making mistakes. It's inevitable. Sometimes you need swagger. Sometimes you need to believe in yourself. Sometimes you need moxie. And those are things that I think right now number 15 lacks. So I know this headline sounds like we're just doing a Penn State podcast here, but I just need to say that I think sometimes with all the change, we make college like it's the NFL, but just because your quarterback has every tool on paper, sometimes college especially, the outlier is swagger, the outlier is moxie, the outlier is confidence, and just like it is in the NFL, good is great. And you know what? Mike Tomlin's been a hell of a head coach for Pittsburgh for a long time, but he might have taken Pittsburgh as far as they can take it, and there's sure as hell another Pennsylvania coach who I think has taken his team as far as he can take it.
And that's
Josh?
Nick Sirianni, because Nick Sirianni went as far as you possibly can.
Oh, that is true.
Josh, your headline.
Yeah, I mean, I could have gone a couple different ways, but I think sticking in the Big Ten, you talk about swagger and moxie, you kind of need it. There's plenty of quarterbacks in the Big Ten that have it. And I think it just kind of goes to show that, you know, what we thought the Big Ten was going to be in some semblance is, but in a big part, the quarterbacks we thought that were going to be are not so far in the Big Ten. It's been obviously number 15 for Penn State. A lot of people had a lot of doubts about a guy like Julian Sayin at Ohio State. He's playing with some of the most swagger I've seen by a quarterback who barely played. And it helps when you have, you know, a guy like Jeremiah Smith, the most talented receiver in the nation on your team, but he's also made the right plays on his feet and the mental game as well. He's been a very smart quarterback. It's a tough environment to win on the road in Washington. He found a way to get it done. Ohio State clearly looks like the best team in the country right now. A guy like Dante Moore doing what he did. I mean, just 10 career games coming in to the whiteout, goes on the road, throws 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, almost 300 yards, had a near perfect game. I actually think you could call it a perfect game for Dante Moore. Did not make any mistakes, made the throws that he needed to make, made the smart choices when he needed to. And those are guys that I think there was a lot of question marks about guys like Julian Sayin and Dante Moore, but guys that had question marks coming into this year are leaving with a lot more answers than questions versus these guys that have been veteran presences coming in now have more questions than answers.
Yeah, I think all good headlines for sure. This was a crazy week of college football. For me, the biggest headline has to be the tiers of teams are starting to form. Now that we're getting towards the halfway point of the season, you're starting to see the teams that are elite. I think for me right now, it's kind of the top 5 teams that we have in our poll that you'll see in just a little bit. Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. You can throw a team like Texas A&M in there if you like, maybe a team like Indiana, Texas, Alabama. For me, those are tier 2 teams. I think you're starting to see the conference championship prediction winners starting to take form. It's starting to look like the Big Ten's going to be Ohio State and Oregon. The SEC could potentially be Oklahoma and Ole Miss. So I think you're, especially with this week, with how much movement you will see in our personal top 25, as well as what you saw in the AP top 25, the tiers of teams are starting to form where you have those elite teams. You have the teams that are going to be very good. You have the teams that are going to be average. And then you have the teams that are not going to win games come postseason play. Justin, you had a point.
Yeah, I think you can expand your point not just to the teams, the players as well. The Heisman race is kind of getting that point too, who we know right now who kind of the legitimate candidates are. And it stinks for a guy like Alma Mater who, you know, is out for a couple games because he was a guy that last week, I think all of us were saying is in that top 5. And now this week we see a completely different top 5, but one that seems like it's not going to go away. And I'll put it out there. I think Dante Moore is probably leading the conversation for Heisman right now.
Yeah, Dante Moore on FanDuel. I checked this morning. He is leading the Heisman odds, followed closely by Ty Simpson of Alabama. So it's starting to show that these ranked wins and these games that are going to be coming up in the middle of the season and then later into the season, they are going to start separating, like you said, Justin. They're going to separate Heisman contenders and Heisman pretenders, but they're also going to separate those elite of the elite teams. So I think that puts us right perfectly into our top 25 poll for this week. As expected, after a crazy week of college football, a lot of movement within the top 10 and a lot of movement within the second half as well. We'll run through it quickly. So you have Ohio State and Miami who stay at 1 and 2. Oregon is there now. Oklahoma and Ole Miss are your top 5 teams. Then into your top 10, you have Texas A&M, Penn State at 7. Indiana right behind them at 8, Texas at 9, and Alabama inside the top 10 once again. Then you have Texas Tech, LSU, and Georgia, who both took ranked losses this week. Vanderbilt, Iowa State, and then you have Tennessee, Missouri, Florida State coming off of a tough loss to now ranked Virginia, who you see later in the poll. Georgia Tech and Michigan. Then you have Notre Dame, Illinois, Arizona State is in, BYU is in, and as aforementioned, Virginia rounds out our top 25 poll. USC was the only other team this week for us that received votes. So pretty consensus top 25 as far as the teams that need to be involved for us this week. A lot of shuffling. You see there, Florida State, LSU, Georgia drop a lot. You see teams get bumped up. Dylan, you're on the top of my screen right now. We will start with you. This got a little heated last week. We'll try to keep it a little bit more under a time constraint because I know we got to get to our picks and some other topics. But Dylan, what stands out for you in this week's poll?
How the hell does Oklahoma have a loss? Oh, wait, no, they won that game. Oh, my God. I was just going to go on a tangent here about that. All right, that was going to be my first point. I still do have Ole Miss over Oklahoma, so I don't understand how I'm the only one of the other than Josh to feel that way. And why I say that is that this will be the first time I ever say what I'm about to say. Josh, of the other 3 hosts of this podcast, not named myself, you are the other smartest person in the room right now, so kudos to you.
This is huge for me.
I really do think that you could kind of put interchangeable here, but one of the things that held me back from putting Oklahoma ahead of Ole Miss was the fact that John Mateer is out, and I know that shouldn't hold it against them, but it's the age-old conversation of I don't necessarily think we have seen what Oklahoma can be without John Mateer right now to its fullest extent. Now we will see that very soon hereafter, and we will see how good of a coach Ben Arbuckle really is and how good this team really is without Mateer, the Heisman favorite before his injury, out of the question. Should they be penalized for that? No, not right now. For me, the win against LSU, for as much smack as I've talked about LSU, though, carried a little bit more weight for me than the win over Michigan for Oklahoma that I thought for 10 seconds there was a loss because I was completely blanking. But the point that I really wanted to make was that I don't know how we can put Alabama at 10 and the team that beat them that far away from them at 18. And I had Florida State the highest of us. Yes, the Florida State lost to a team that was unranked last week, but they were on the road in a night environment against a team that we now put in the top 25. So if we're going to value them into the top 25, that's why sometimes the AP poll pisses me off, but now we're just kind of depicting the same thing here. We're going to put UVA into the top 25 and give them that credit, but we're going to knock Florida State 8 spots behind Alabama, an Alabama team that they beat. So for me, that's just why the polls sometimes make no sense. But the one thing I'll say is I'm not going to scream and yell at Justin this week because exactly what happened last week is what kind of we said made our point, other than just for the fun and the hell of it of us arguing a moot point, is that everything started to get sorted out. Everything started to get a little bit clearer after last week, and it will only continue to do so from here. I just heavily disagree with how low that you guys put Florida State.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, I want to just say for me, I did not consider the fact that John Mater is out for Oklahoma, so that is why I had Oklahoma over Ole Miss. But I think that's a fair point, Dylan. You know, if you're ranking purely based on the roster right now and as well as the results, I can see why Ole Miss would be ahead of Oklahoma. For me, with Florida State, it came down to, and I'm sure with Justin, it came to it as well. I saw LSU and Georgia as teams I already had over in front of Florida State, and then just kind of bumped some teams up. So that was my logic, and that's why I think Florida State is so low. I also think that, I mean, as much as Florida State was, into a tough environment, they were at least a touchdown favorite in that game. I think that has to be considered, that they were, it's not like they were 2.5 point favorites where, it's could go either way. So for me, that was the decision. But Justin, I will go to you now with your, takeaways from our top 25 poll.
Yeah, I'll give my reasoning on Oklahoma, and it's simply just because we haven't seen what they look like without John Mater. Heck, maybe their backup quarterback is better than John Mater, and I think it's going to change this week. I personally do, but for right now, that's what I've seen from them. It's not that big, and I think, it's going to even itself out just like it did last week. On the Florida State low point and Alabama high and UV, like, for me, I think sometimes, and we see this a lot in Ohio State and Michigan. Last year, Michigan, beat Ohio State. That Michigan team was bad last year. What did they finish? 8-5 or something like that? Whatever the case is. Some teams just have a roster construction or a scheme that can beat one team, but it doesn't translate on the field to beat other teams. So for me, I dropped Florida State significantly because I think that was exposed, that Alabama game, it was a mismatch of scheme and preparation that week because Alabama kind of, was all over the place. But looking at that Florida State game against UVA, they showed a lot more flaws, and you'll try to put them on a matchup with LSU or Georgia or the teams that I had put in front of them, and I just don't see them winning because I don't think they line up. I just think they happen to line up well against Alabama, and we gave them tons of credit, and rightfully so. And now, again, it's that whole evening out process to this point. I think my other takeaway and the last point I want to make is 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion, are the only 3 teams that through the first 5 weeks of the season, I think have legitimate shots at winning the national championship. Those 3 teams have not shown too many flaws. They've had some flaws. Every team has. But those 3 teams seemingly each week control their games. And even Oregon, I know it went to double overtime, but Josh Pate, he said it best on his show. It really felt for a while that Oregon just had that game in control. And if they were to line up on a neutral field or if they were to line up at Autzen Stadium, I think that game is a 2-3 possession game. But obviously that whiteout crowd was, it's the best environment in sports. But then I go to that next, group of teams. I don't know which of those teams legitimately has a shot. And I personally don't think Indiana has that good of a shot, but they deserve their ranking to this point. So for me, 1, 2, and 3 are national championship contenders. Maybe 4 through 13, because I still like Georgia. They're there, but I don't see it right now. I think we've got our champion, and it's going to age horribly, so get ready to cut a clip. But I think our champion this year is Ohio State, Miami, or Oregon.
I think it's a reasonable take for sure. I mean, those 3 teams in all of our polls were in the top 3 in whatever order. I mean, Ohio State was all of our top teams. Justin, I believe you and I had Miami as 2. Dylan and Josh had Oregon at 2. But either way, they're a top 3 team. I think it's a fair point to make that they seem like the only national championship contenders right now as far as teams you legit can see winning it. For me, I would include Oklahoma and Ole Miss in that tier of teams as far as quality, but I agree with you that I think national championship wise, I would leave out Oklahoma, especially with John Mater, and Ole Miss, especially with, if Chambliss is really going to be their quarterback moving forward.
And just their defense through the first couple weeks has been spotty. And I would love to see Ohio State and Ole Miss match up right now, right? And see what one of those offenses like Ohio State's, Miami's, or Oregon's would do against a really spotty Ole Miss defense that did come to play. Credit to them against LSU.
Josh, we will move to you for your takeaway.
I mean, I think just kind of building on. I personally didn't rank Virginia. I understand they beat a team like Florida State on at home in overtime and everything, but they lost to a bad NC State team earlier this year, and I understand. I think we gave Florida State a lot of credit, but again, like Justin said, maybe it was just a mismatch in Alabama's part. And Alabama has proven that they are a very, very good team, and I think that really just goes to show that I do believe that Florida State should be in that spot that they're at. And I still think that it's a little bit unfair that we knock out USC in our poll for a team that lost on a last-second field goal on the road to another ranked team in Illinois, a team that we now know they're still a good football team. A lot of people were kind of, writing off Illinois the second they got absolutely boat raced by Indiana, and rightfully so. But they came back home and had a bounce back game against a good USC team. And I think moving them out of the poll is just a little bit disrespectful to them. But my main takeaway here is that I don't see how we can have a team like Texas, who has proven nothing, ahead of a team like Alabama, who just went on the road in a hostile environment, broke the longest home winning streak in college football. And we talked about this a little bit at length last week, but I have not seen anything from Texas to prove to me that they deserve to be in the top 10. And you kind of talked about it a little bit about Penn State last week, Justin, and why you have them so low in your ranking. Penn State got proven for 50 minutes out of the 16 regulation on Saturday that they didn't deserve to be in the top 10. They came back in a little bit, but realistically, Penn State was not in that game. Offensively, they weren't. They were completely outclassed.
So
Texas,
then why do you have them ranked 3
Yeah,
spots
so
ahead of Alabama?
I wanna
You're a
ask
little
this.
contradicting yourself here. I'm
wanna
fired
ask
up
this.
now. I got energy, Josh.
I want to ask this real quick because I was going back and forth personally with these two Big Ten teams that we have at 7 and 8. For me, when you look purely at resume, and now I know Penn State, had an easier non-con to start the year, but Indiana has a ranked win, a dominant ranked win. Penn State just lost a big ranked game. So for me, I ended up ranking Penn State ahead. But for me, I feel like there is a reasonable debate to have Indiana ahead of Penn State.
I agree. What made it really tough? What made it really tough
is how can you rank Alabama ahead when Texas lost to the number 1 team in our poll and Alabama lost to our current number 18 team?
Because Alabama just has a better win, a much better win than Texas. You go on they broke the longest winning streak at home in the NCAA.
I go back to Dylan's point last week, though, where we're punishing teams too much for winning games. Like, yes, Texas has, they lost their first game against Ohio State, but they've won the rest of them. I think
they haven't looked great at that. Like, they've had the same problem that Penn State had in terms of offense. And the reason that the Penn State game, until that fourth quarter happened, I was fully ready to put Penn State out of my top 10. But they did something, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but they did something that they really haven't done when they get into those big games, which is find a way to come back and at least tie the game, which is different. But I personally put Alabama ahead of Texas in my poll because of the fact that Alabama went on the road, they proved something big, and they had an offense that showed out, where Texas's offense and Arch Manning only showed out against a team like Sam Houston, and that is a concern for me. I think we will very easily see how good Texas is when they play Oklahoma in a few weeks. It depends, again, if John Mateer is full. Even it might not depend if John Mateer is fully healthy. But I think in terms of resumes, it is a little bit hypocritical for me to say. I'll put it out there. But Penn State has looked better, at least because of the fact they got it to double overtime. I would argue that they've looked better than Texas in the game that they played against one of those top 3 teams that we've talked about. That would be my thing. The rest of the poll, I don't really have an issue with. I think it was tough in those mid tiers because of Florida State losing and everything else. And Georgia Tech realistically should have lost. They got bailed out by a non-offsides call. But I think I think it's tough once you, like Justin said, once you get out of those top 5 teams, really, though they've really proven themselves. The rest, it's kind of still up in the air, besides a team like Indiana and Alabama who have big wins against ranked teams.
I want to make one more point on these rankings in general, because Josh, you brought up the point about USC falling out. I think the ranking should stop at 20. And I'm not just saying ours. I think AP too. I think 21 through probably 30, in the nation could be any of those spots, right? And it's just like, why rank them? because the 21st through 25th team in the country, they're not making the college football playoff based off ranking anyway, right? They would have to win their conference or whatnot. It's a small little thing, but I think, we might pay a little bit too much attention. I agree. I mean, I dropped USC out, but I see the argument, right? And I would put USC. I would take USC on a neutral field over Virginia and BYU. But I mean, I don't know. I think it should be top 20 and not top 25. It's just a small pet peeve of mine because I think those teams are so, I don't want to say irrelevant, but in a sense, they are irrelevant for the big picture.
I can see your point because when I was doing my poll and I'm looking at a team like Virginia, ASU, BYU, USC, and you're thinking, in the AP poll, Virginia gets a big win over Florida State and they're just in the AP poll. And then you look at last week, TCU jumps in and then they're right back out. It almost seems like all those teams that are in that 21 to 25 range, one loss takes them out, one loss or one win puts them back in. It feels kind of irrelevant at that point. So I think that's a good point for sure.
I agree.
The one thing I want to point out, looking at our polls,
everyone agreed with me for once. This is awesome.
I was having that problem making my poll. Was that I had 10 teams I wanted to put in those final five. I was like, this is dumb.
And I don't want to knock our intelligence or make our podcast sound less reliable. How much do we actually know about those five teams in comparison to the top five? Right? And that goes for AP voters too. That's why we had the whole big problem earlier this year with the USF and all that stuff. But I digress.
The last point I want to make in looking through our polls, there's one glaring thing that I've noticed. And Dylan, it is with your poll. LSU took a loss to Ole Miss. You're the only one who has LSU still within the top 10. I just wanted to get your reasoning on it. Let our viewers know what your thoughts are on LSU.
That I was still at my job when I was trying to fix my poll this morning.
Oh, you don't watch every game? All right, Mr. AP.
No,
Mr.
I actually do feel relatively confident in what I'm about to say next, despite how much you guys know I'm not Brian Kelly's biggest fan or this program's biggest fan. I was actually pretty comfortable putting them ahead of Texas, Indiana, and Alabama because on a neutral field right now, I don't know if I would have any of the following those three teams that are below LSU in my poll, Texas, Indiana, and Alabama. I don't know if I would have them above LSU. I don't know if I'd have them winning that game. I still don't buy the Indiana hype fully because, as I said last week, I think Illinois is a good team, not great. I think Alabama showed their flaws in the Florida State game. The only difference this weekend was style makes fights. And right now, Gunnar Stockton has not fully looked the best in some of these big games. And I don't know if Georgia's got the same talent that they've had in years past. And I think that was exploited by Alabama. I would probably have Alabama as the closest in matchup to LSU. But the other thing I'll say is that for all the stuff I've said about Garrett Nussmeier, for all the stuff I've said about Brian Kelly and his offense, at least they've proven it in a big game. At least they've proven it once this year already. We haven't seen Texas do that. We haven't seen Indiana do that. And for me, the loss to Florida State stings a little bit more for Bama than it does for the losses for LSU, Texas, and Indiana hasn't lost yet. So that was my rationale, despite the fact that would I maybe reconsider the Alabama LSU side of it? Yes. I think that's, again, one of those things that'll get sorted out as the weeks continue. But I can back that up. I think that was part of my rationale, other than the fact that I was also trying to figure out what the heck was going to be on Catskills News tomorrow morning.
Okay, I just wanted to make it a point. Go ahead, Josh.
My only thing is that, you bring up the neutral field thing, and that's fine, but that's really for a power ranking, and this is just more like a poll, and that's based off resume. I agree that I think LSU would beat a good chunk of those teams on a neutral field, but that's not what it's about. It's about resume.
But I also think their resume is stronger. I think I just laid out that same thing with the neutral field. I think maybe Alabama. That's why I said Alabama, but Texas has not beaten anybody. Hell, I could make the case that I put LSU above Penn State. LSU has the most impressive win. Sorry.
You're supposed to call
except
Clemson
Alabama.
An impressive win.
I still do think Clemson. I said this case the other day that I think Penn State's closer to being Clemson than they are to Ohio State, but that's a separate thing for our breakdown of that game.
I
remembered it halfway through.
That was a really good. That's good.
That was my headline. And I still don't think Clemson is not a top 25 team when it comes in terms of talent. So that was my perspective there. It's why I think we need a top 20. It's why I stand where I stand. Again, I'll say the same thing. I was also trying to figure out what the heck goes on in Catskills.
I think that's a good way to end this. I think it's kind of clear. Our top two teams in the okay, great. Yeah. I think the top two teams in the Big Ten are starting to show in Ohio State, Oregon. I think the SEC is becoming a 2, maybe 3 team race. You have Oklahoma and Ole Miss at the top right now. The ACC, it looks like Miami is going to be the clear-cut favorite for the next few weeks. And the Big 12, at this point, who knows? I mean, teams keep beating other teams.
Spin the wheel. I said it at the start of the season. I'll say it again. Spin a wheel, and you probably can figure out who the heck's going to win the Big 12.
You got no idea who's going to win the Big 12. But we will recap our picks from last week and get into our picks for this week. A little bit of a lighter week for college football. But we had a little bit of separation in the standings a little bit. A few of us did pretty good. A couple of us did not so great. We talked about our picks already, but we'll talk about our locks and long shots. So locks-wise, Dylan and Josh, the only two able to get their lock. Dylan fading at UCLA once again with a nice Northwestern pick.
Except this weekend. Okay.
Josh, long shot.
Josh picking North Texas to win. I lost bad with Florida State. Justin took NC State and lost, and Grant, for whatever reason, took his lock at Penn State. And that ended up not going well.
Look at that. Wait, Virginia Tech fires Brent Pry. They're 2-0, and I'm wrong.
And long shot wise.
So just to say, Dylan, be careful fading you at UCLA. They could turn it around this week.
Oh, yeah.
There might be some Penn State fans hoping for that, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
I can tell you one, our former roommate, but anyways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Long shot wise, none of us were very good, other than Mr. Grant Sheets. The Sunshine, or what is it? The Rainbow Warriors? Is that what they are?
Yes.
Hawaii.
Sunshine.
I was going to say Sunshine. It was not
the
right.
Sunshine Samurai instead of the Rainbow Warriors.
The Rainbow Warriors get Grant a long shot win. Yeah. Bowling Green did not win for Dylan. Washington did not win for me. Colorado did not win for Justin. And Syracuse got beat bad for Josh. So that gives us our total for the week. So Dylan goes 5 for 10 on picks and gets 5 points. I had a good week on picks, but my lock cost me. I went 8 for 10 on picks, 7 points. Yeah, there you go. Justin did well with picks, also 7 for 10, but did lose his lock, so he gets 6 points.
Is there any rule to not doing a lock?
True. It can only hurt you.
Yeah, if it only hurts me, can I skip it?
No, that's the point. We got to do it.
All right.
Josh went 5 for 10 and gets 5 points, and then Grant goes 7 for 10 with 7 points, bringing our overall total. Oh, hold on. Let me get back to it. I lost it. There we go. So I am in the lead with 19 points. Justin, Josh, and Grant are all with 18, and Dylan with 17. So still very, very close. Dylan is 15 and 15 on picks. I am 21 and 9. Justin is 18 and 12. Josh is 17 and 13. And miraculously, Grant Sheets is in second place at 19 and 11. So despite not being on the show, he has picked pretty well.
We do have proof of life. Dylan and I saw him this weekend. He seems to be really doing well.
I'm proud of the kid.
I did try to get him on tonight. He said no, but we're going to get him here, and he is just going to take this to another level.
Yeah. Grant is our Lee Corso for anybody who doesn't know Grant. He's our Lee Corso. He shows up sometimes when he wants, and when he does, he makes big statements, and that's for sure.
We did get some listener/viewer feedback, and she did tell us that she knows who Grant Sheets is, but she could see how some listeners or viewers could find it confusing that we only talk about this guy like he's Lee Corso and doesn't actually exist half the time.
I think we should put Grant's face on that photo.
Yeah, we need a picture of Grant. He has been lacking on his daily selfie, but we will get that to you next week.
Yeah, it wasn't really daily.
We'll get it to you next time on this episode, but I think it's time to get into our week 6 college football picks, and we'll try to go a little bit quicker for the first 6 or 7, maybe a little bit more.
Was that supposed to be a joke?
No,
you guys are children.
Yes, Grandpa.
Because relatively lighter week for college football. Still some good matchups, but none of the top-ranked matchups like we're expecting. We'll start with game 1. Wanted to throw some Big Ten in here a little bit more than we have. It's Washington at Maryland. I think this is a good matchup for the Big Ten, a little bit of an underrated one. Washington is 3-1 this year. Maryland is 4-0 with their true freshman quarterback, Malik Washington. Maryland did receive votes in this week's AP poll. Washington making their first trip to Maryland. It's the second meeting between these two since the 1982 Aloha Bowl. So, Justin, who do you like? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun game that I don't think many people saw coming in the Big Ten, in college football in general. This is a Washington team that struggled last year in its first year in the Big Ten. They lost their defensive coordinator, who is not doing a good job with UNC with his dad and Steve Belichick. We lost Josh.
It's okay.
Anyway, wow, that got me off track here. But this is a Maryland team that has had a good offense, and I think that's really where that team has lacked. They haven't been able to lock in some big recruits, and they finally did with Malik Washington, and he's looked pretty dang good. Their last time out was against Wisconsin, winning by 17. This is a Washington team that was supposed to make a statement against Ohio State, and they left so much out there. Now they have to travel cross country after playing the number one team. I don't like their odds. Give me Maryland.
Dylan?
I think that's a good point right there on Justin's end about the travel, coming off a game that they really emptied the clip trying to win that game and upset Ohio State. I loved that Washington got their flowers last week for having an exciting start to the season. And again, still having, in my opinion, one of the most exciting trios in all of the Big Ten in Devon Williams, Jonah Coleman, and Denzel Boston. The problem just kind of then becomes that you're also going up against a young quarterback at home who looks like he has been one of the best freshmen in college football this year, maybe the best freshman in college football this year in Malik Washington, coupled with the fact that you have the travel. If this game was in Washington, I think Washington wins the game. But at home with the wind at his back, I'm going to take Malik Washington and the Terrapins. I don't love it. I don't have to have it, but I certainly am going to pick it. And so that's where we're currently at. I'm going to go with the Terrapins to win this one.
Okay. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I hate picking Maryland just because I have not trusted that football program in a long time. Ever since they left to join the Big Ten, they've been bad. But Malik Washington has been electric so far to start the year. And I do think that there is going to be a little bit of not necessarily a confidence lack or just kind of, a little bit of a downer vibe for a Washington team that, there was a lot of talk that they could have an upset. They led at points in that game. The defense stuck around for a bit, and then they just they got exhausted. And I think that's going to really play into this week going on the road for a team that maybe they are underestimating because it's a Maryland football team that nobody's talking about. They should be. They're very good. Their offense looked incredible. So I'm going to stick with Maryland. I hate it. I don't like the fact that we're all going the same pick again because that rarely works out for us. But I just really love what I've seen from Malik Washington in a small handful of games so far.
I'm riding with Maryland as well. I think Malik Washington, you've seen the maturity, only one interception. He's had a rushing touchdown in the last couple of games. For me, with Washington, the key is going to be getting Jonah Coleman going. He had his first game this season without a touchdown against Ohio State. He still leads the Big Ten in rushing touchdowns with 9, over 400 yards rushing. I think Jonah Coleman is the X factor and the key for Washington if they're going to get a win on the road. But I think the travel, Justin, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, that you unload the clip against the number one team trying to get an upset win, and then you have to bounce back against a team that's been playing really well. So give me Maryland in that one. We will move on to another Big Ten matchup, Minnesota, who is 3-1 this year against the number one team in the country, Ohio State, who is 4-0. Minnesota facing the number one team in the nation for the first time since 2006. And actually a little bit of a homecoming for PJ Fleck as he returns to Columbus. He was a graduate assistant under Jim Tressel in 2006. So kind of an interesting little tie-in there. Justin, we'll start with you again. Minnesota, Ohio State, who do you like?
Yeah, I like the number one team in the country against a team without a number next to its name. Not much more to say. Really like what I've seen from Julian Sayin so far at quarterback, even though it's the team that, Penn State claims to be a rival or whatever the case is. I really like what Ohio State's put out there. So give me Ohio State, probably by a large margin.
Dylan?
Ditto.
Very good.
I was a little surprised this made it on the slate. This is, I don't think it'll be close.
It's
Slim
a very
pickings
light
this week.
slate.
Yeah. Even though I am currently residing in Minnesota, PJ Fleck is great when he's playing an AP ranked team at home. They're on the road. Yeah, Ski-U-Ma, they're losing this one by more touchdowns that are in the phrase Ski-U-Ma.
I'll be honest, guys. I'm picking Ohio State as well. I think the reason I put this one on the sheet is we haven't talked about Ohio State since the first week as far as any of their matchups. Felt like maybe
we barely did there.
Yeah, but I think it's rightfully so. I mean, they're the number one team in the country.
Maybe they lose.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, this upset watch. I don't know, but I think we're all rocking with Ohio State there. Not much more to say. We'll move on to the next game, which also could be an interesting one, in my opinion. Number 9, Texas, who is 3-1 this year, on the road against Florida, who's 1-3, but they've had a tough schedule, one of the toughest schedules in the country. The Longhorns did move up a spot in the AP poll. It's just the 4th meeting between these two teams, which is a little bit surprising to me. Texas has won all 3 matchups so far. Justin?
Yeah, boys, I'm making a dumb pick, and this is what cost me last year. But I dislike Texas, and we all know that I don't
dislike Texas. You dislike Arch Manning.
No. This goes way beyond Arch Manning. I've never liked the Longhorns. Horns down. Here's my quick reasoning why I can maybe make this a little bit professional in a sense. Florida's defense has been the strong suit to this team this year, and Arch has struggled, right? And I'm not just saying that because I don't like Arch. You guys have all said that at some other point this season that he struggled a little bit. He struggled on the road against Ohio State. This game is in a ruckus environment. I know they've probably turned on Billy Napier and the Gators by now, but it's at Florida, and those fans will still show up and show out. Give me the Gators to upset Texas. Horns down.
Wow. Dylan, are you riding with your boy DJ Lagway?
So this is a bad defense, or a very good defense. The problem is that the contrast, it's a really, really bad offense. Defense ranks in the top 50 in opposing points per game, opposing yards per game, opposing points. Pretty much every category they're in the top 50. They're in the top 35 in a number of them as well. They have had no real pass rush. They don't really make a ton of plays. They don't force a lot of turnovers. Their secondary is just really good. They're really reliable, and they don't get beat that often. So when you talk about it in that regard, yeah, they could be a pretty nasty team for Arch Manning to have to play on the road. But to Justin's point, even though he just stopped to probably go to the bathroom or something, his whole sentiment that I won't go back or I won't back down is going to be blaring, and Tom Petty and that crowd and whatever is going to make a difference. I don't buy it right now. I really don't. I think last year, this team, this crowd, this university got behind Billy Napier. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I don't think Florida's falling for the same shtick again. I think Texas goes in. They're a more talented team. They take care of business. The defense scares me. They certainly have done a good job. The problem then goes back to, I said it and I stick to it. I will not pick DJ Lagway again this season. Get the Gators on the grill. They are not going to win this weekend.
Well, a little update on Justin. Just like Alabama, he had to take the dogs out. So
wow,
he's taking his dog
You were really
out.
smart. You were really waiting to get that one.
I was ready for that one,
yep,
Josh.
Yep.
Who do you like in this match?
You won't pick DJ Lagway, but DJ Lagway will throw at least 6 picks your way. So I think that's a pretty good one for myself. I mean, look, I think that both these teams have 2 quarterbacks that would be really, really good if they knew how to throw the ball to the right team is the problem. And neither one of these teams has a quarterback that can do that currently. I have a lot more faith in a guy like Arch Manning, who has not been in college football for as long a time, like DJ Lagway. I think this game could be a 6-3 final. I think both these offenses are god awful, and I trust Texas. I trust that Texas defense that has come into the SEC and proven that they can play at the SEC level. I trust them to win this battle for Texas. And like Dylan said, these Gators are dead in the water.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest, I thought about picking Florida in this one, but I have to ride Texas because as much as I would love to pick against Arch Manning, because I agree with Justin pretty point blank. I think Arch Manning has not looked great.
That's a great sentence to come back to.
Yeah. But I also think DJ Lagway has looked even worse. So give me Texas's defense to get a few turnovers, maybe even return one for a touchdown as well to help that offense out a little bit. Give me Texas in this game, and we will move on. An interesting matchup again for me. I don't know about you guys, but number 14, Iowa State, who is 5-0 this year, maybe a little bit not what people expected from Iowa State coming in. They're at Cincinnati, who is 3-1. No movement in the AP poll for Iowa State, despite a big win over Arizona. Iowa State is 2-0 against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is playing their first ranked opponent at home since 2023. And for Iowa State, for Cincinnati, it's the first 3-game win streak since 2022. Justin, who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, honestly, this is another one where I would have the red sirens going for a potential upset alert. I really like this year's version of the Cincinnati Bearcats. However, I just like Rocco Becht a lot more. I hope you guys hear Mel walking by in the background, but I love Rocco Becht. He can win the close game. It's going to be tougher than people think. I have Iowa State, though, squeaking one out.
Dylan?
I think a lack of a true rushing game outside of Sorsby for Cincinnati scares me. The lack of, in my opinion, legitimate tests. Bowling Green's not been great, and I know that because I picked them last week. I didn't even know Northwestern State was a college, and they eked out a win against Kansas and lost to Nebraska. I don't feel like Cincinnati has played that level of top-tier opponents. They did look good in that game against Nebraska. To be transparent, that was the last time I watched a nice chunk of a Cincinnati game this year. I just don't – the lack of a run game, lack of a defense that I think is going to really fool Rocco Becht. Becht's not been outstanding. His completion percentage is still a little bit worrisome, and he still makes some bad reads at points. And then this Iowa State defense, though, they can ebb and flow. I think they are going to be pretty strong, though, in this one. I think they win on the road, and I feel pretty good about it. Give me the Cyclones.
Josh?
Yeah, if the game against Arizona had been a little bit closer, I think I would have been really heavily favoring Cincinnati in this game. But I think Iowa State kind of made a statement, and I remember talking about it last week, saying that their best win was a terrible Kansas State team that just kind of the wheels have fallen off. They hadn't looked good, and Iowa didn't, and the win over Iowa didn't look good either. Well, the offense showed up in a big way against a decent Arizona team. We've talked about it. That's a good Arizona team. They beat the brakes off of them. I think they have a lot of confidence going into this matchup. The offense is finally starting to get a groove. Rocco Becht has looked better these last few weeks as well. And I think they're gelling at the perfect time because this really could be an upset alert. But because of how dominant they were last week, really, put my pick to water and proved that they deserve to be in a ranked team and one of the best teams in the country. So I will go with Iowa State in this one.
I was most unsure of my Big 12 picks when we were talking about conference championship predictions on Dylan's show. I had Iowa State and Arizona State in it. It didn't look so hot for Arizona State to start the year. They get a big win. Now Iowa State is 5-0. I'm feeling good about my Big 12 picks, and I'm going to continue to ride with Rocco Becht and Iowa State in this one. For me, it just comes down to the experience. Dylan, I agree with you. Sorsby has looked pretty good. I mean, maybe one of the more underrated quarterbacks in all of college football, but I don't think it's enough to be a very good Iowa State team and a defense that is very underrated in college football. So I'll ride with Iowa State as well. We'll move on to our next matchup, which coming into the year looked very interesting. Not so sure how interesting it looks now, at least in my opinion. It's Boise State, who is 3-1, against number 21 Notre Dame, who is 2-2, maybe one of the more controversial teams in terms of who are they, what are they this year. Notre Dame did bump up one spot after a win against Arkansas. It's the first meeting between these two sides. However, both, as we know, were in the college football playoff last year. Justin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I got to make it quick because it sounds like the dog is eating the Christmas tree box right now. So there 2 words, one name, however you want to put it. CJ Carr, I believe, is a guy that should be in that Heisman conversation and be high up there. I think Boise State, if this game was last year, would make this a lot more interesting of a game. They've had some problems this year getting it really, all figured out. When their offense is there, their defense isn't, and back and forth. I know the 3-1 record would indicate otherwise, but Notre Dame just got to figure out that secondary a little bit more. And this is a Boise State team that I think we all know really likes that run game. So give me CJ Carr, Notre Dame's offense, to take care of any potential threat here.
Dylan?
Not to quote Miley Cyrus here, but here comes the climb. We are going to start to watch Notre Dame climb their way into the postseason conversation. Everyone else will shoot themselves in the foot. And then we will look at that game in a couple weeks against USC in South Bend as, wow, if Notre Dame wins this, they pretty much get into the college football playoff, barring some shock upset, which happened against Northern Illinois. So it can always be possible for the Irish. But you look at the road ahead. You have this Boise State game that I think they win, then NC State at USC, but then or hosting USC, then they're at Boston College, then it's Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. The only team that gives me as much fear, maybe, and after this week against Duke, maybe very little fear, would be Cuse. Otherwise, Notre Dame's starting to climb. Notre Dame's starting to click. The offense is humming. Defense needs to button it up a little bit more, but they are starting to take care of business. If they do it again this weekend, you're going to start to hear rumblings of here come the Irish.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's kind of in a beautiful spot here because all they have to really do is probably win out, and there will be teams ahead of them that lose because their schedule does not look particularly difficult. I'll eat my words on last week. Didn't like Notre Dame. Ate those words very fast, so much of the fact that Arkansas fired Sam Pittman immediately after that game. So shame on me. And I'm not going to pick against Notre Dame probably the rest of the year with the way that offense really clicked. I do really like CJ Carr. So I'm going to have to go with Notre Dame. It's pretty simple in this one.
For me, I'm going to pick Notre Dame as well. I think the big thing that Notre Dame did is they got Jeremiah Love really, really going again, which is going to be huge for them the rest of the year. But I do want to say one thing. I think we can all agree to an extent that if Notre Dame gets one more loss on their resume, I don't know if they can even make the college football playoffs. So very
no
dangerous
legitimate
situation.
Team they play the rest of the way. I agree.
Yeah. So
you have to win out.
Very dangerous situation for Notre Dame to have 2 losses right now. They can't really afford another one. So I think they get a big one here over Boise State. And Boise State is wishing they had Ashton Genty and the performance he had against the Chicago Bears this past weekend. I'll move on to the next matchup, which in my opinion is one of the top matchups to watch this weekend. It's newly ranked number 24 Virginia, who's 4-1, against Louisville, who is 4-0, with Miller Moss at quarterback. First appearance inside the top 25 since 2019 for Virginia. Louisville did receive votes in the AP poll this week and have won the last 3 meetings between these two sides. Justin, are you riding with Virginia or do you like the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think kind of back to our conversation earlier to wrap it full circle. If you're receiving votes, you're probably also good enough to be the 24th team in the country and all the way up to 21st in the country, in my humble, not so humble opinion. Virginia, yeah, they looked good. They got an upset win against a really what we thought was going to be an exceptional Florida State team after week 1. And we'll see. That could still be their only loss of the season. And, they go and, play, for the ACC championship and then the playoffs. But this is a Louisville team that's been revitalized by the success of Miller Moss, the former USC guy that's come over. This is a Louisville team that's been revitalized by the transfer portal. And this is bring it full circle again. Returning production doesn't always tell the full story. This is a team that didn't have much of it in the ACC, but they got the right guys and they're starting to get going. And I think, being at home I don't think Louisville's the best environment, but it's an environment and it's a tough one. And I think Miller Moss just thrives there. So I have Louisville pulling off, I guess you'd consider it an upset, even though, I think these teams are interchangeable.
Dylan?
I think UVA starts to kind of get themselves into the conversation with a win this weekend. I don't feel super good about it. My gut tells me that I should just go with Louisville and that somehow UVA pulled off a fluke win last weekend and the rest of the way things get choppy and the water will get choppy. But we haven't seen Louisville play anybody yet. And this will be a great test for them. But I'm going to go with what we know. And what we know is the Cavaliers just beat what I think is a very good Florida State team. We'll find out if they're brought together by shoestrings and rubber bands and clinging on to a win from week 1 this weekend, or if they're actually a good team. But when it comes to UVA, I'm going to go with what we know. And what we know is that they just won last weekend against a team that I consider very good right now. So I'm going to go with them again to take down Louisville at home, or on the road, rather. Well,
Josh?
Louisville at home. You get what I'm saying.
I think to a
tired.
counterpoint, I think maybe this is a Virginia team that might be overlooking Louisville after getting their big win. They might be riding too much of a high after winning at home and having. Can we agree that that was the world's best, but also most dangerous storming of the field ever? It was awesome, but I'm pretty sure Florida wide receiver might have died, or Florida State wide receiver might have died in the process. I don't know if he's been found yet, but I still and look. I'm someone that has watched the ACC for a very long time. Any team that loses to
Why?
Because I'm from North Carolina. Any team that loses to NC State this year, especially who just lost to Virginia Tech, is not a good football team. You can find a way, and any given Saturday, a team can be another team. I don't really think Virginia is as good as the record shows. I think Louisville has looked better a lot of the time. And I do think they had a big come from behind win against a Pitt team that normally doesn't play that poorly until later on in the season. So I like Louisville in this one. I really like Miller Moss. I think his Big Ten experience will help for a team against a team like Virginia that I just don't think is as good as that ranking shows.
I think this is an intriguing matchup because of the fact, Virginia, a huge win, they get a lot of national attention, especially for the way they stormed the field. I mean, that's a pretty cool way to win a game, especially if you're the Cavaliers. But I think, Louisville at home, I agree. Miller Moss's experience in the Big Ten will help them. Give me Louisville to win this game. I think, I picked Arizona State against a ranked TCU team last week at home. I'm going to take another unranked team against a ranked team at home this week. So give me Louisville. We'll move on to a couple of unbeaten teams. Number 11, Texas Tech, 4-0. At Houston, who is 4-0. Texas Tech did jump one spot in the poll as well. They're 4-0 for the first time since 2013. The Red Raiders have had a lot of success against Houston. 6-game win streak. They've won 11 of the last 12 meetings. Justin, who do you like in this matchup?
Oh, my first observation is how about the state of Texas? We just talked about number 9 Texas, the Longhorns at 3-1. Now you got number 11 Texas Tech. You got Houston 4-0. We're about to talk about number 6 Texas A&M. You know what? I have to pick a Texas team here. I'm going to pick one in the next. I'm going to pick one in the next game as well. I'm not to show my hand or anything, but this Texas Tech team just defeated a very highly thought of Utah team. That was their last game out. Then they had the bye week this week. Baron Morton was cleared to return to practice. They beat Utah on the likes of their backup quarterback. I think it's Will Hammond. And they didn't skip a beat. They may have even gotten a little bit better on offense. That is transfer portal U over there at Texas Tech right now with how they put together that roster. But again, if you can make the pieces fit, get that square peg into the round hole, which I think Texas Tech has done here. I think it's a recipe for success. Houston's wins have been fluky to an extent so far this year. So I have the Red Raiders.
I'll say the same thing that Justin just said there, and that'll be my pick so that we can keep the, things moving along here. The wheel keeps on spinning. Houston hasn't beaten anybody yet who would give me the confidence they can beat a Texas Tech team that I think is legitimate. I bet against them with Utah. They proved me wrong, and they did so convincingly. Give me Tech to win and remain undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, pretty simple. This Texas Tech team beat Oregon State 45-14, and Houston needed overtime to beat a winless Oregon State team last week. And that Texas Tech is just absolutely loaded. I do still think that this is a very good Utah team that they beat a few weeks ago. But Houston is going to get blown out of the water in this one.
I think Texas Tech is really good. I think after this week, I wouldn't be surprised if they're inside the top 10 in the AP poll. I think they deserve to be inside the top 10 after this. I think they get a big win. I agree with you guys. I think, Houston hasn't beat anybody worth noting yet. So give me Texas Tech as well. We'll move on to our top 3 matchups of the week. Our first matchup is Mississippi State, who is 4-1, a tough loss in overtime against Tennessee, on the road against number 6 Texas A&M, who is 4-0. Unofficially, Mississippi State is number 28 in the AP poll. Texas A&M did move up 3 spots as well. Aggies are 4-0 for the first time since 2016, and it's the highest ranking for Texas A&M since 2022. So, Justin, who do you like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people overlooked the way Texas A&M played this last week at Auburn. Just a 16-10 victory for the Aggies, coming off of a 1-point win against Notre Dame. This is a Texas A&M team that, yeah, they're 4-0. Yeah, their resume boosts some big teams or some big wins, but has struggled. And on the same boot, this is a Mississippi State team that beat, an Arizona State team that made it back to the rankings. They beat Southern Miss, Alcorn State, Northern Illinois. And then I think to the surprise of all of us, because of the first 4 opponents of their season, Mississippi State played a really good Tennessee team, really close. I said all that just to tell you I'm picking Texas A&M anyway. I like Marcel Reed. I like what the Aggies have. And I just think it's a little bit too much for Mississippi State team that to me feels like it's a year or 2 away from being able to probably put a ranking next to their name. And I had them ranked the last couple of weeks.
Dylan?
Year or 2 away, I think, is still the right sentiment here. I think this is a very, very, very tough test for Mike Elko to go on the road. Mike Elko at home here, this is a tough test for him. But when you talk about this Mississippi State team, this is a Mississippi State team that, although they have a senior quarterback, is young. They're young in terms of what I think they still can accomplish. Jeff Levy, I think, is a really, really good coach. And I think there is that sentiment that they are a couple years away. Elko and A&M have gotten their big win this season. I still think A&M is still a little bit away. Do I think this Mississippi State team makes the playoff? I don't know about that. They have a hell of a really, really rough way the rest of the year, but they showed me something in that Tennessee game. They were on the brink of winning that before Joey Aguilar would clutch up at the end. The road after this for Mississippi State, Texas, Georgia, Mizzou, Ole Miss, they even have Florida, and then Whoopig Suey in there. But with all of that said, Elko got his statement win. And I think Elko is a great coach, and A&M will still hover around the playoff picture, but I haven't fully bought them as a legit team. I think they just caught lightning in the bottle in South Bend. So I'm going to go with an upset here. I need to start taking chances if I want to somehow catch you guys. And I think this is Jeff Levy's version of what Mike Elko got in South Bend. That was the point I was trying to make. But my point is Mississippi State, Blake Shapen, Faith Brothwell, baby. They're going to make some noise this weekend, and they're going to do it in College Station.
Josh?
I have really, really liked this Mississippi State team this year, and it's tough because I know, Justin, last week we were the only 2 people that ranked them, and I think they deservedly should have still been ranked. I would have kept them in the rankings realistically. They lost at home to a very good Tennessee team that almost beat Georgia, and realistically, if they had a kicker, if they didn't false start before a kick at the end of the game, would have won that game, but I digress. However, I mean, the 12th man in College Station is undoubtedly going to play a huge factor in this one. I think the defense of Texas A&M, yeah, they only scored 16 points against Auburn, but they also held Auburn to 10 points at the same time, an Auburn team that was playing an Oklahoma team very well and earlier this year was ranked. So I think that the defense has settled down after giving up 20-plus points to some mid-tier opponents to start the year. I think that Mike Elko and the Aggies are in a rhythm, and unfortunately for Mississippi State, their schedule is brutal. I do think they are one of the top 30 teams in college football this year. I do think next year there is really to be their year to make a statement. I just don't think – I think the magic is running out for Mississippi State right now. So I've got Texas A&M.
All good points. I think Dylan makes some good points for Mississippi State to win this game. We had a ton of upsets last week. I think this week is a little bit more chalk. I'm going to take Texas A&M. I've really liked what I've seen from the Aggies. I would put them right outside my tier 1 of teams that I mentioned earlier. They're my first team in tier 2. So give me the Aggies to get a big win over Mississippi State, a win that I think could end up being a very important one for them for the college football playoff. And we will move on to one of our top 2 games of the week. Miami, who is ranked number 3 in the AP poll, is 4-0 on the road at number 18, Florida State, who is now 3-1. Miami did drop to 3 after that Oregon win. Florida State had the biggest fall of the week, 10 spots in the AP poll. However, Florida State 3-0 at home this year. They have won the last 2 against the Hurricanes at home. The last time Florida State beat a top 3 opponent, it was in the BCS National Championship, and it was led by Jameis Winston over number 2 Auburn. He ate a W there. Miami does lead the all-time series 36-33, but Miami did lose the last 3 in a row before last year when Florida State when Miami beat Florida State. So, Justin, a big matchup here. Who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, you changed my mind by saying Jameis Winston, QB3 of the New York Giants, who just had their first win of the season, led by QB1 Jackson Dart. Anyway, I digress. I don't have Florida State winning. I couldn't care less that you mentioned Jameis Winston. Great guy, except for when he took some crab legs from the grocery store. What has Miami shown this year that would have you concerned? That would be my question. You can think back to last year's version of Carson Beck. What if he shows up? Well, it's a big what if. What I've seen so far is Miami has looked good at the quarterback position with Carson Beck. They've looked good at the running back position with Mark Fletcher. Their wide receivers, I'm not going to name them all, but they have looked very good, led by a true freshman in Malachi Toney. On the defensive side of the ball, they have not done anything that would or had a game where it felt maybe it could flip. And I know the Notre Dame game was 24 points, but their defense came to play when it mattered most. Same thing when they played South Florida. Same thing when they played Florida. They play a lot of teams in Florida to start their season is what I'm realizing the more I talk about this. Florida State coming off that tough loss, they're going to be fired up. That crowd is going to want to rally back behind them and help them get the win. I just think Miami, I said it earlier, and I'll stand on it. I think Miami is one of 3 teams in the country to this point of the season that has shown me a national championship caliber team, and I think that's what I'm using here. As much as Florida State, found lightning in a bottle once against Alabama, maybe it wasn't lightning in the bottle. Maybe they were, destined to win that game. It doesn't matter to me. I have Miami moving to 5-0, and this is, one of those wins that I think could really change the resume of Alabama, if you get what I'm saying here with Florida State.
Don't.
That's the thing that I was kind of alluding to earlier, that I think that I don't love either of these teams, and that's kind of my problem here. Now, I'm going to say that and then say, if you want to clip this, so do it. I think at some point Miami is going to fall, and at some point Miami is going to prove that they're a good team this year. Heck, you could even put them as a great team. But I do think that Miami has shown some cracks in the armor. I don't think this is a team that's unbeatable. I don't think this is a team, at least just yet, that is battle-tested enough, kind of cohesive enough. Also, with some of the young talent they have on this team, and they've got a hell of a lot of it, I don't know if they're as experienced as enough. But you only get experience by playing in games like this, on the road, in a very, very tough place to play. And then on the same side of things, as much as I think Miami might not fully be legit, and I do see where Justin's head could be at, but I actually think the only team right now that I would really put all my stock in being fully legit, with no injuries, nothing else in the equation, because I think we still need to see Ohio State play a little bit more, and against another really good opponent or two. It's really Ohio State and Oregon for me, with Miami just on the cusp of it, because they didn't blow Florida out of the water. They didn't necessarily prove enough to me in that or in Notre Dame yet to just put them into that upper echelon. But another win is coming this weekend, another feather in the cap to say all that I just said, because I do think this is a Florida State team that is held together by bubblegum, shoestrings, whatever you want to call it. Mike Norvell got himself off the hot seat with that win against Alabama, but I don't think he's fully out of the woods just yet. This is a Florida State team that got upset last week, and I think they are held together by gum and shoestrings. The brakes are going to fall off. We find out how good of a coach Mike Norvell really is this weekend, or if he was just a kind of guy who benefited in a big way from the portal in that first magical year of that Florida State new era, whatever we want to call it, when they went perfect a year ago or 2 years ago. We'll see how many shades of that really bad team of Florida is still here. I'm going to find out a lot about both these two teams this weekend, but I'm going to go with what we know. And right now, Miami is a little bit more battle tested.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Any
when
day
it comes
now,
down
Josh.
to it, sorry, my thing is I'm glitching out over here. I could barely hear the last 30 seconds. Of
I
what
know
you
I
said,
made
Dylan.
such a
Sound
good
like
point that
robot.
I took your breath away, but
Right.
at some point you got to get it on track.
No, you actually were spinning in circles so much that my laptop started crashing. Is what the problem was
Wow.
happening.
Wow.
Because I don't
Going
like
back-
either of these teams. I'm sorry. I don't like
I
either
think
of these teams. I am
and that's
not buying
fair.
all the
And I-
Miami stock.
Oh boy,
Jeez. I don't like the Hurricanes.
I normally am on your side about that, right?
Nationwide is on your
On your-
side.
I remember saying at the beginning of the year that Mario Cristobal always finds a way to lose a game that he should win. The thing about Miami is that they normally lose those games in November. Actually, historically, it always is when that collapses in November. We're still in September. This game will be happening in October. They're still one of the best teams in the country right now. It doesn't matter if they didn't, blow any of their teams out of the water in Notre Dame or Florida. Two teams that have very good defenses. We just alluded to how great Florida's defense is earlier in this podcast itself. Carson Beck has looked fantastic. And the problem that I have with Tommy Castellanos is that he just has not looked good. You look at his last two games, 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions, and he didn't throw a touchdown against Kent State. Didn't necessarily need to. He didn't throw the ball a lot in those first 3 games. It was a lot of jet motion. Again, a Florida State offense that has been very, very solid and just kind of doing whatever they can to limit what their quarterback needs to do. But he had to throw more. He threw 32 passes against UVA and just did not look as good as he had in weeks past. I just don't think that he really is living up to the hype. I think that week 1 against Alabama, again, we talked about it. I think they were a little bit overhyped after winning that game. I do think that Miami's going to come in on the road, especially after Florida State lost the way they did last week. And I still think they're missing one of their receivers. He's still somewhere buried in that field in Virginia. But regardless, I think Miami wins this one big.
They had to have found him at some point, right?
Right.
Every video I've seen, I have not seen him come up from the ground. I'm really worried that he's not found. I'm scared.
Maybe he stayed in UVA.
It's a Where's Waldo thing, but he's like
to have the
halfway
fans
around
that
with
close is crazy. I mean,
It's what is
awesome.
great
That's
about
what-
college football. I'm
I was just
sorry.
saying.
I'm
I agree,
pretty
though.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the guy's okay, right? That's where this all starts. But that right there is the most authentic field rush we have ever seen. And that's straight passion for a program that's been buried for years.
Yeah.
Look, the guy's in shoulder pads and a helmet. He couldn't be that hurt.
Yeah. Well, I will say.
Did you see the amount of people on there?
Yeah.
It was
It's
like
okay,
a stampede.
Listen.
It's okay. The one fan gave Tommy Castellanos the thumbs up. I think it was a thumb. To make sure the guy was okay.
That's what he'd appreciate, right? At that point.
Listen, college basketball, you have the fans right on the court, so it's pretty easy. I think that Field Storm even does some of the college basketball ones, which are pretty crazy.
It was a 12 out of 10.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
It was a 20 out of 10. It was so
in this
good.
matchup, I know Dylan, like Pat McAfee, is hoping that the Hurricanes fall and drop off of a high platform like McAfee did last week on game day. But I'm going to say that Miami keeps climbing the ladder. I think Miami and Carson Beck are legit. I said it, however many times on this podcast so far. I think Miami, in my opinion, is the second best team. Oregon's right there. I had thoughts about ranking Miami ahead of Ohio State right now as the number 1 ranked team. I didn't, but I think Miami's right in that conversation. So I'm not going to say much more, but give me the Hurricanes on the road. Tough environment, tough game. I think it'll be close, but give me Miami. And now we move into our final matchup, which a few years ago, you would not have had a thought about who is going to win this game. This one's a little bit more interesting. Number 16, Vanderbilt, who is 5-0, on the road against number 10, Alabama, who is 3-1. Vanderbilt is up 2 spots in the AP poll. Alabama is up 7 after their Georgia upset. College game day is in Tuscaloosa. 61st game day appearance for Alabama. That's second only to Ohio State. It's the 87th meeting between these two sides all time. Bama dominates the series 63-19-4. Vanderbilt has only beaten Alabama once in Tuscaloosa. That came in 1984. The Tide are riding an 11-game winning streak at home versus Vanderbilt. They are facing Alabama as a ranked team for the first time since 1958, and both teams are facing each other as ranked teams for the first time since 1937. It features a couple of Heisman candidates. Should be a good quarterback matchup with Diego Pavia and Ty Simpson. It is our game of the week as well. Justin, who do you like?
Yeah, I don't want to have to eat my words, but I don't see it happening twice. What are the odds that a Vanderbilt team, and look, they were a better team last year. They're even better team this year. And Diego Pavia is a huge reason why. That's one of the teams where returning production has actually mattered in a positive way for them. And Alabama, since their 0-1 start, their returning production has done the same. For me, this is an Alabama team coming off of the first, or what feels like the first signature win of the Kalen DeBoer era of Alabama football. It took him off the hot seat, and I sure as heck don't think he wants to go right back on it with a loss to Vanderbilt at Nick Saban Field at Brian Dennett Stadium. But for me, this is a game that is going to be decided by not who game plans better, not anything like that. It's going to come down to 4 quarters of the more talented football team, right? I think Vanderbilt is built to hang around and to, make it a close game, but Alabama's got more talent everywhere on the field. And that includes in the quarterback position with Ty Simpson, who's coming off of a good game against Georgia. Jam Miller didn't look necessarily great against Georgia, but first game back against that defensive front, yeah, I probably wouldn't have a great game either. In fact, I probably would be hurt. And yeah, for me, it's the opportunity for Alabama to strike back. I don't want to be that guy because I don't think Kalen DeBoer would be that guy, but it's almost like Kalen DeBoer can stick up 2 middle fingers at the end of this game and say, you may have got me last year, but you're not getting me again. This is my Alabama team. I'm back. They're back. And Alabama starts riding their way towards that, level of teams we talked about that have a chance to win the national championship. If you couldn't tell by now, I am picking the Crimson Tide to win this game against Vanderbilt.
Dylan?
I've been enjoying the props. And unfortunately, I do think this picture is too big to actually even still see our faces. So I'll try to get it off the screen quick. But we all know what happened here. But if you don't, I'll still give you some elaboration. I realize with these props, this is really only great for YouTube. By the way, check out our YouTube, Locks and Longshots College Football Podcast, if you're listening to this right now, because I think you get some added benefits sometimes by seeing our facial reactions to things, or in this case, seeing Diego Pavia's mom and Theo Vaughn there sweating at the outcome so that he could potentially have a date with her. Then there's the Tate McRae in it all, whatever the heck is going on there. But so that's kind of where I'll start there before I get us back all on the same screen, because I do think this is a Vanderbilt team that is really fun. And I think this is a Vanderbilt team that Diego Pavia has asserted himself pretty firmly as one of the most entertaining, most reliable quarterbacks in college football. And as much as you say, we say there's so much variance in college football, so much change. Returning production, maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. The one thing that I think we've proven this year is that if you've got moxie, if you've got swagger, you can go a hell of a long way in college ball. So it goes back to my actual first point, my headline today of that college isn't the NFL, and for good reason, because you can do really cool stuff like you saw out in Charlottesville on Friday night. You can also have quarterbacks who might not ever make it in the NFL like Diego Pavia or Haynes King, but they are sure as hell fun to watch play football because they are gutsy. And Vanderbilt can win this game. Vanderbilt is more than capable of doing it. But DeBoer is the guy, and DeBoer finally proved that in a big way last weekend. That is a win that I don't think anybody could have truly seen coming. I know you guys picked it, but to break a win streak of that magnitude for UGA, yes, UGA might be a different team this season. And Alabama, though, I think has finally put themselves back into that same kind of stratosphere, a top 10 team, a true top 10 team, just with a win like that. I think some people are going to knock them for what Florida State might do after Saturday, and especially if Florida State drops in a big way. But this is a big win for them if they can get it. And this is how this guy, I think, is going to be FaceTiming DeBoer. I don't ever remember seeing this picture. So there's 2 ways this goes. Saban's either calling him and going, how the hell do you lose to the Commodores in Tuscaloosa? Or he's calling him and going, my guy, I'm proud. No, I take back everything I said about Alabama. That's how he's going to be FaceTiming him to judge him, because Diego Pavia is that guy. And unfortunately, I already got rid of the picture. But Tate McRae, Diego Pavia's mom. They can all get together at some point. I'm here for the meme. I'm not here to win. I'm going to roll the dice here. Let's have some fun. Give me the commies to take down take down Bama and Tuscaloosa.
Okay, Josh.
That went everywhere and anywhere.
I was like,
Sorry, I don't know how to get rid of it.
There it is. I kind of forgot part of my point because Dylan.
Yeah.
I forgot mine. I'm delusional, guys. I'm sleep deprived. You're either getting one word out of me or whatever the hell that just was.
Dylan, I think if I had a shot for every time that you said DeBoer is the guy, I would have been drunk by week 0.
DeBoer is the guy, maybe not on the Saturday.
But is he the people, or is that still Justin?
Well, look, regardless of whatever that was, whatever the hell that was from Dylan,
I don't know.
long gone are the days where you could just say that theoretically Vanderbilt is next on Alabama's schedule. This actually is a good game finally, and I'm very excited for it. But I think Justin brought up a good point earlier that I don't see Alabama losing this game 2 years in a row. I love Diego Pavia. I love that Vanderbilt team. I think they're still criminally underrated in the AP poll. I think they have a better resume than some teams ahead of them, and they've been dominating. Their offense is good, but this is not in Vanderbilt. It's not like last year. No goalposts are getting thrown into that river. And I think this would have been my headline, but Thomas, you wanted us to really steer clear of that Alabama, Georgia, and the Oregon, Penn State stuff. But I think that Florida State loss might have been the best thing to happen to Alabama this season. I think getting their theoretical shit kicked in against Florida State on the road, they've woken up and they have looked real damn good since then, including breaking the longest winning streak at home in the NCAA. A team that in Georgia that everyone, not everyone on this podcast, but a good chunk of people thought was going to win that game and continue that home streak. Alabama's awake. Taylor DeBoer, I will say it, he is the guy right now because he's gotten the win against Georgia. And I think that they really needed that Florida. I think having that Florida State loss early on in the season being week 1, and it also helps that the AP voters have really heavily favored Florida State since then. I still think Alabama's in a good enough spot where they got that loss out of the way, and he woke up. He knows he was on the hot seat, and they look ready to go. They have looked like one of the best teams in the country since that loss, and they proved it last week, and they're proved it again this week with another ranked win. I've got the Crimson Tide.
Listen, I think I'm watching most in this game the quarterback matchup. Like I said before, a couple of Heisman contenders. Diego Pavia, per the FanDuel odds, is 8th right now. Ty Simpson, obviously quarterback for Alabama, is 2nd behind Dante Moore for Oregon. Listen, I think Diego Pavia has a better game than Ty Simpson in this matchup. Pavia is over 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, nearly 300 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I really do think he might be a better quarterback than Ty Simpson overall. But I can't pick against Alabama. I think Justin hit it, on the head when he picked Alabama as his SEC winner earlier on Dylan's show. I think I've kind of started to get on the train with Justin in that sense. I really like Alabama. I picked them to beat Georgia, and I thought that was going to be the win that really spiraled them into winning out the rest of the year. It's a tough schedule for any SEC team to win out, but I think Alabama has the team to do it. They're inside the top 10 now. I think they continue to climb, and they continue to get into that upper tier of SEC teams. So give me Alabama in this matchup. And that will round out our picks for this week. But we got our locks and long shots to do. I think these are going to go pretty quick as they usually do. Justin, we will start with your lock of the week.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at some betting lines on this Monday night for these games this week, don't bet a single dollar. I think all these lines are sketchy, in my opinion. There's a lot of big number totaled out there that I don't like, that I'll personally stay away from. And I think there's a lot of small number totals that we can't use here for locks and long shots. So I can't say to take them or not. One game where I think where I'm pretty confident is the armed forces that go at it this week. Army at Navy, not Army. Oh my, wow.
No, not yet. Not yet, man.
Air Force at Navy. Let me try that again. This is an Air Force team that has lost to Hawaii, Boise State, Utah State. They beat Bucknell, which the only reason I know where Bucknell is because it's not that far from Penn State. On the other side, this is a Navy team that beat VMI. They beat pretty solid and up and coming UAB team. They beat Tulsa and they beat Rice, who I think a lot of people have put some stock into this year. I have Navy minus 11.5 over Air Force.
Dylan?
Not really happy with you guys right now because you left me on the island all by myself. But
I said the guy.
I'm actually the one on the island right now. It's called Long Island.
Dylan, I said DeBoer is the guy. I said it.
Shut up, Josh. UConn.
UConn's your lock. Okay, Josh.
On your side, you're such an ass. I think that we talked last week about a guy by the name of Sawyer Robertson who probably should be in the Heisman conversation, if not leading it. Baylor somehow is only favored by 6.5 points against a Kansas State team that still has not recovered from losing overseas week 0. That is an easy bet for me. I've got Baylor. I think Sawyer Robinson, 17 touchdowns to 3 interceptions is outright ridiculous this early on in the season. After 5 weeks of play, he's been fantastic. So I've got Baylor as my lock. Feels pretty easy.
That was going to be my pick, but I'll try to switch it up here quickly. We'll go out on a limb here. Central Michigan is playing Akron. I've stopped playing my Akron dynasty on college football because they just suck. The program is in shambles. They're 1-4 to start this season. Central Michigan is 8.5-point favorites. So give me Central Michigan in that matchup as my lock of the week. And now we'll go to our long shots to wrap things up. Justin?
Yeah, I am mainly making my long shot pick so I can go on a quick rant just like Mike Gundy used to. The way that Oklahoma State last week, because we filmed before he was fired, the way they dismissed Mike Gundy after all those years with that program, that was straight BS, not letting him go out on his own terms. Let's be real. Oklahoma State isn't going anywhere this year. You play out this season because you allowed him to come back this year. And if not, you fire him on Sunday. You don't wait till midway through the week on Tuesday to get rid of the guy. That was straight BS the way Oklahoma State handled that whole situation. Do I really believe in Oklahoma State to cover 20.5 in their matchup against Arizona? No. But for the fun of it, just like the Virginia Tech Hokies have bounced back since their head coach got dismissed, Oklahoma State had a better offensive performance against Baylor than they had their previous 3 games. I have Oklahoma State with the upset. And you know what? I'm upset because of the way they let Mike Gundy go. I hope he makes his way to some college media show somewhere so we can keep him going.
Dylan?
What's the long shot again?
My God.
Anything greater than 3.5-point underdogs.
We got some just an underdog.
I'm just gonna ask you guys every week. Wake Forest. I'm gonna go with Wake Forest. I think the Blacksburg run that they're on right now is a sham. And UVA is the only relevant team in that state right now. I don't know. Guys, I'm sleep deprived. I used all the energy I had left on that Tate McRae, Diego Pavia thing I did.
Good Lord.
Get it out, Josh. I want to go to bed.
Oh my! I was waiting for Thomas, who always says our name before.
Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you. I was trying to be respectful of our host, Dylan. I'm also going to say in the ACC, last year's Woke versus Coke. I'm going with the Woke. I think Cal is. I think Duke, again, I need to stop picking against Duke because it did not work for me last week, but I think that Cal's one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country. He was very underrated. Cannot pronounce his name, not even going to try. But I think at home, this is a Cal team that loss to San Diego State isn't great. But I think that they have the capability to pull off the upset here. I just really like the quarterback play from Cal so far.
I'm going to stay in the ACC as well. I'm going to pick Boston College on the road against Pitt. 6.5-point underdogs. I've not liked what I've saw from Pitt. I picked them I picked West Virginia, beat them, and they did.
West Virginia.
Yeah. I don't think Pitt is as good as advertised. I think Boston College has played close in a lot of games, especially against a good team in Louisville last week. So give me Boston College against Cal last week, not Louisville. Apologies. But I like Boston College to potentially upset Pitt this week. Dylan, you have one more point.
Speaking of Woke versus Coke, Josh, turn your hat around real quick.
I know where this is going.
That's all I'll say, folks. If you had a chance to look on that sideline, I don't know what he was doing in those Beaver Stadium locker rooms, but
Really good win.
God. What a guy, man. Shout out Dan Lanning. What a great coach. Completely unrelated to that point I just made there.
Best coach in college football right now.
Yes,
I
that
don't
I agree.
think that's crazy to
Wholeheartedly.
say. I think that's I think that's a pretty good point to end on. Dan Lanning, really good coach. He's got that program in a going in the right direction, and who knows what's going to happen with the bald guy that leads Penn State. But we will digress.
9-3, baby.
We will look. Suey. He's
we will
going
look at
me.
another week. Another week of college football is coming up this weekend. We've made our picks. We hope that you make yours and enjoy your Saturday of college football. We'll be back next Sunday or Monday to recap everything and give you another episode here of Locks and Longshots.